The alien market was alive with noise, filled with laughter, shouts, and cruel bargains. Bright lights burned above. But in the center of the square, all brightness only made the scene darker. A small alien girl was dragged by her arms into the circle, her tiny body weak, her skin pale, and her eyes wide with fear. The crowd gathered quickly, ready to be entertained. She wore almost nothing, only torn cloth barely hanging on her shoulders. The guards ripped even that away and left her, bare. The crowd roared with laughter. Some shouted insults, others threw rotten scraps from their bags. The girl tried to cover herself, trembling in shame, but her small hands were too weak to hide her body. She fell to her knees as the laughter grew, louder. The market of shame was not new. It was a cruel tradition, a place where the weak and the unwanted were displayed for mockery. The aliens believed it was a lesson. "See how the weak suffer," they shouted. The girl had been brought here because she was different, too small for her kind, too fragile, and too quiet. She was seen as useless, and so they decided to break her completely. Among the noisy crowd, one human stood. His name was not known in this place. He was a traveler, a worker, a man who had crossed many alien worlds. He had seen cruelty before, but what he saw here tightened his fists. His eyes locked on the girl. Her face carried no anger, only fear and shame. Yet there was a flicker of something more, a faint spark that had not yet died. The announcer lifted his voice. "Behold the failure of her species. She is nothing, worth less than the dirt you step on." The crowd cheered. Some children in the crowd threw stones. A small one hit her shoulder and she whimpered, curling into herself. Another rock struck her leg and she collapsed. Her knees scraped against the stone ground. Her body shook violently from cold and fear. But the human did not cheer. He felt anger boiling inside. His jaw clenched. His heart pounded as he watched the helpless figure. The aliens around him noticed his silence and sneered. "Why so serious, human? Is this not amusing to your kind?" They mocked, but he did not reply. The girl raised her head slowly. Her eyes scanned the crowd with hopelessness. No one was coming, no one would save her. She saw only cruel faces, until her gaze stopped. She saw him, the human. Unlike the others, he did not laugh. His eyes burned with something strange, something she did not understand. It was not cruelty. It was not joy. It was fire. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She was too weak to call for help. Her body shook harder. She lowered her eyes again, believing even he would turn away. The announcer laughed louder. "She is worth nothing. Who will claim her? Who will take the shame for themselves?" The crowd shouted back. "No one. Leave her for the beasts. She is garbage." The girl closed her eyes tightly. She wanted the noise to stop. She wanted to vanish. But in that very moment, footsteps echoed. The human stepped forward slowly but firmly. He pushed past the crowd, his boots striking the stone ground with a sound that cut through the laughter. The crowd turned silent for a moment, their eyes wide with disbelief. The announcer frowned. "Human, what are you doing? Do you wish to mock her too?" His voice was sharp, almost angry. But the man said nothing yet. He walked until he stood just in front of the trembling girl. She did not dare look at him. She waited for another insult, another strike. Instead, the human's hands moved. He reached to his shoulders, unfastened his heavy coat, and slowly bent down. With gentle motion, he wrapped the coat around her small body, covering her bare skin, shielding her from the cold. Gasps filled the air. The crowd erupted in shock. Some laughed nervously, some shouted in rage. "Why waste warmth on trash?" one alien yelled. "She does not deserve it," another hissed, but the human did not answer. His eyes were calm yet fierce. His actions were his reply. The girl froze in place. She clutched the coat tightly around herself, her trembling eased just a little. Her eyes lifted slowly to meet his. For the first time in her life, someone had given her warmth, not pain. She whispered a single word, her voice almost broken. "Why?" The crowd grew angrier. Guards stepped closer with weapons raised. "Leave her, human. This is not your fight," one barked. But the human finally spoke. His voice was steady and firm. "It is now!" The crowd roared again, filled with anger and disbelief. The girl's heart pounded as she realized what he had done. The moment that should have been her end had suddenly changed, and so the market of shame became something else. A place where the cruelty of many was challenged by the choice of one. The human had stepped into danger. The girl had been wrapped in warmth, and the story of defiance had just begun. The square was no longer filled with laughter. Instead, a storm of voices rose as the human knelt before the alien girl. His coat covered her trembling body. His defiance was clear, and the market did not forgive such things. The guards pressed forward, their metal staffs humming with energy. The leader, tall and armored, barked, "Human, step away. That creature is cursed. She is not worth your life." But the human's stance did not change. He rose to his full height, his frame casting a shadow over the girl. His eyes burned like fire, his hands tightened into fists. The girl's breath was shallow. She clutched the coat close, her heart raced. She had never been shielded before, never been chosen before. For a moment she wondered if this was some cruel trick. But the warmth of the fabric told her it was. Real still, fear rattled her bones. For every man who stood against the guards ended up broken. The announcer sneered. "See, the human plays hero. He thinks kindness will save him. Let us show him how mercy is crushed." The crowd roared, hungry for violence. They wanted blood. Either the girls or the humans. It did not matter. To them, the human lifted his voice at last, steady and strong. "You call this entertainment humiliating the weak?" His words cut through the noise. The crowd grew silent for a heartbeat, shocked that he dared to speak against them. He continued, "Then you are the weak ones, for it takes no strength to laugh at a child." Murmurs spread like wildfire. Some shouted back in rage, "Silence!" Others spat, "He insults us." A stone was hurled at him, striking his arm, but he did not flinch. He stood like a wall, unbroken. The girl's eyes widened. No one had ever spoken for her. No one had ever risked themselves. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Why?" The word barely escaped her. But he heard. His gaze softened. "Because no one else will." The guards moved in, their staffs raised. Sparks of energy lit the air. The leader growled, "Last chance, human. Leave the coat and walk away, or we will crush you beside her." The crowd cheered at the threat, eager to see him fall. But instead of retreating, the human stepped closer to the girl. He crouched slightly, his voice low so only she could hear. "Do not be afraid. They will not harm you. Not while I stand." The girl stared at him, her chest tightening with emotions she had never known. Safety, warmth, and hope. The first guard lunged, his staff whistled through the air. The human's hand shot up, catching the weapon mid-swing. The crack of energy burned against his skin, but his grip held. With a swift motion, he yanked the guard forward and sent him sprawling to the ground. The crowd gasped. A murmur of fear rippled. They had not expected him to fight. The second guard charged, but the human swung the fallen staff like a club. The strike smashed into the guard's chest, sending him crashing backward. His armored body clanged against the stone, groaning in pain. The crowd's cheers turned into shouts of shock. The girl pressed herself into the ground, her heart racing. She had seen many beaten in this square, but never had she seen the guards fall. The coat wrapped around her shook as she held it tighter. Her eyes locked on the human, every move he made searing into her memory. The announcer's voice cracked in fury. "Seize him, kill him if you must, he is nothing but flesh and bone." More guards rushed forward, their weapons gleaming. The crowd screamed with excitement. The human stood tall, his breath steady. He glanced back at the girl for a moment. "Stay close," he said. Then he turned and braced himself as the wave of enemies came. Blows rained down. Energy staffs clashed. Sparks lit the night. The human grunted with each strike, but his arms swung with strength born of fury. One guard fell, another staggered. His knuckles split and blood stained his hands. Yet he did not stop. He fought as if every strike was meant to protect the girl behind him. The girl's small voice carried over the chaos. "Please stop, they will kill you." But the human only smiled for an instant. "Not today," he answered, and his fist dropped another guard. Soon the leader himself stepped forward, his eyes cold, his staff charged with dangerous light. He towered above the human. "You cannot fight us all, fool," he spat. His blow came swift and strong. The human blocked, but the force knocked him to his knees. The crowd cheered wildly, believing the fight was over. The girl gasped. Fear gripped her heart. She crawled forward, clutching the coat. "No!" she cried. Her weak voice cut through the crowd's roar. For the first time, her voice had weight. The human rose again, blood dripping from his lip. His voice thundered across the square. "You call her worthless, yet you tremble before a man who stands for her, who then is weak." His words struck like a hammer. The leader snarled and swung. Again. But this time, the human caught the staff and wrenched it from his hands. With one final strike, he sent the leader crashing to the ground. The square fell silent. The girl's eyes filled with tears. Her chest rose and fell in disbelief. He had not only protected her, he had stood against them all and won. The announcer tried to speak, but his voice shook. "This is madness, he cannot—" But the crowd's silence was louder than any words. The human turned, his chest heaving. He bent and gently lifted the girl to her feet. The coat still wrapped around her, his voice was softer now. "We need to leave, can you walk?" She nodded weakly, her small hand clutching the edge of the coat as if it were life itself. Her legs trembled, but she stood. The crowd, once filled with cruelty, now stared in stunned silence. The human had defied them all, and the girl, once mocked and left bare, now stood wrapped not only in warmth but in defiance. And so the coat became more than cloth. It became a shield, a symbol, the coat of defiance. The market square had fallen, silent. The human stood tall, bloodied but unbroken. The alien girl clung to his coat, her tiny fingers gripping the fabric as though it was the last anchor to life. Around them, the crowd murmured in shock. They had expected the human to fall, yet he stood victorious. But silence never lasted long in a place built on cruelty. The announcer raised his voice again, his tone sharp with fear and fury. "Do not. Let them leave, seize them both," he shouted. Guards scattered, horns blared, and from the alleys around the square more soldiers began to appear. The human glanced at the girl. Her body trembled, her face pale. But her eyes no longer held only fear. There was something new. Hope. Fragile but alive. He bent down and spoke softly. "We need to move. Can you walk?" She nodded quickly. Though her legs shook under her, he took her hand, warm and firm. Guiding her through the chaos, they slipped into a narrow passage at the side of the square. The crowd erupted into noise, boots pounded against the stone ground. The chase had begun. The alley was dark and winding, shadows stretching across crumbling walls. The human pulled her along with steady strength. Every corner carried danger. Every shadow could hide a soldier. The girl's breath came in sharp gasps, her bare feet cut by rough stone. But she never let go of his hand. Behind them, shouts grew louder. "This way! They cannot escape!" Torches flickered in the distance. The human's mind raced. He knew they could not outrun an entire garrison. They needed to disappear to outsmart, not outrun. He pulled the girl into a broken doorway, the remains of an old storage house. Inside, dust filled the air. Wooden crates lay scattered. He crouched, with her in the shadows, his body shielded hers. Her heart pounded so loud she feared it would give them away. Voices passed by outside, harsh and angry. "Find them. The human bleeds. He cannot run far." The girl pressed her face into the coat, her small frame shaking. The human whispered, "Breathe slowly. Stay quiet." She nodded, holding her breath until her lungs burned. The footsteps faded for a moment. The human risked a glance. The alley seemed clear. "Come," he whispered. They slipped back into the night. Every step was a battle. The girl stumbled often, her strength fading. The coat dragged heavily on her shoulders, but she clung to it. For the first time she was not shivering from cold but from fear of losing this one chance at life. At the far end of the street, horns blared again. Lights flared as more guards rushed into the district. The human cursed under his breath. He lifted the girl suddenly into his arms. She gasped, startled. "I can walk," she whispered. But he shook his head. Not fast enough. His legs carried them swiftly through the maze of alleys. The girl clutched the coat tighter, her cheek pressed against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat. Strong, steady, defiant. It was a sound she had never known before, a sound of life and protection. They darted into another passage, but at its end a group of guards appeared. The human froze for a split second, then turned sharply into a side stair that spiraled downward. The guards shouted behind them. The chase thundered closer. The stair led into the underworks of the market, a place of tunnels and old storage chambers. The air grew damp and foul. The human's boots splashed through shallow water as he carried her deeper. The sound echoed. The girl whispered, "They will catch us." He answered firmly, "Not if we keep moving." In the darkness, her fear twisted. "Why do you risk this? I am nothing. I am cursed." Her voice cracked with shame. She had been told all her life she was worthless. Even her own kind had mocked her. The words spilled out like poison. The human slowed. He set her gently on her feet and crouched so his eyes met hers. His voice was steady but filled with fire. "You are not nothing. Do not believe their lies. You are alive. You deserve more than this." Tears welled in her eyes. Her lips trembled. No one had ever spoken such words to her. She wanted to believe, but years of cruelty weighed heavy. She shook her head. "They will hunt you too. You should leave me." He gripped her shoulders. Firmly, "Listen to me. I will not leave you. Not now, not ever." His words rang with truth. The girl felt her chest tighten with something unfamiliar, warmth deeper than the coat. It frightened her and gave her strength at the same time. The sound of boots echoed again, closer. The human rose and pulled her onward. They ran through the dripping tunnels until a faint light appeared ahead. A broken grate led outside the city walls. Freedom was near, but as they approached, shadows moved. Hunters stepped from the darkness, their eyes glinting with cruel delight. "There they are." One snarled. Weapons gleamed in their hands. The girl froze, terror flooding her. The coat slipped from her shoulders. The human stepped in front of her instantly, his fists clenched, his chest rising and falling with steady rage. He looked back once and said softly, "Stay behind me." "No, matter what?" The girl's heart pounded. She gripped the coat again, pulling it tight. She wanted to scream, to run, but something inside her whispered that he would not let them win. Not while he still stood. The hunters closed in. The first escape was far from over. The night was only beginning. The hunters circled like wolves in the dark. Their eyes gleamed. With hunger for violence, the human stood firm, shielding the girl with his body. His breath was heavy, his fists raw, but his will burned stronger than ever. The girl clung to the coat, trembling as she peeked from behind him. Her heart screamed for her to run, yet her legs stayed rooted. She could not leave him, not after everything. Her fear wrestled with something new, something she did not understand yet. The hunters laughed. "One human thinks he can fight us all," their leader hissed. His long blade shimmered in the dim light. "You will die slow, and the creature will crawl back to the dirt where she belongs." The human's voice was low but steady. "If I fall, I'll fall protecting her." His words echoed like steel against stone. The girl's chest tightened. No one had ever spoken such words for her. Not her people, not her family. No one. The hunters lunged, the tunnel filled with the clash of metal and the roar of fists. The human fought like a storm, striking with fury. He blocked one blade, twisted another arm, and drove his elbow into a snarling face. But the numbers pressed harder. The girl gasped, her body screamed to hide, to cover her ears. But her eyes refused to turn away. She watched him bleed for her. She watched him fight against death. And inside her something stirred, a spark. One hunter broke past the human and grabbed her arm. She cried out, struggling weakly. The coat slipped again from her shoulder. The hunter sneered. Come back to the dirt, little worm. Before the human could turn, she moved. Her small hand grabbed a rusted pipe from the ground. Without thinking, she swung. The pipe cracked against the hunter's head with a dull thud. The alien collapsed with a cry. The girl froze, staring at her shaking hands. She had never fought back, never dared. Her breaths came in sharp gasps. The human turned and saw her. His eyes widened, not in anger but in pride. Good, he whispered, before spinning back to strike another attacker. The spark inside her grew. For years she had been told she was weak, useless, a failure. But now she saw her hands could strike, her voice could shout, her heart could burn. The hunters cursed as more of them fell. Their leader roared, swinging his blade with fury. The human caught it with his bare hand, blood running down his fingers. He twisted the weapon free and drove his knee into the leader's chest. The sound echoed through the tunnel. The remaining hunters hesitated. Their sneers faltered. The sight of their fallen brothers weighed heavy. The leader staggered back, clutching his chest. His eyes narrowed. This is not over, human. You will pay, both of you. He barked the order to retreat, and the hunters slipped into the shadows, their footsteps fading. Silence filled the tunnel. The human's chest heaved, his arms trembled with exhaustion, but he still stood. He turned to the girl. She was still holding the pipe, her body shaking, her wide eyes locked on him. He stepped closer, gently prying the weapon from her trembling grip. His voice softened. You fought back. You were brave. She shook her head quickly. I was afraid. Her voice cracked. Tears welled in her eyes. I thought I would die. He knelt, wiping blood from his lip with a tired hand. Fear is not weakness. Little one, courage is when you act even while afraid. Tonight you found courage. Her chest tightened again. She clutched the coat closer, his words burning into her heart. No one had ever told her she was brave. She had always been told the opposite. Yet here he was, bleeding and battered, calling her strong. The tunnel grew colder as the night deepened. The human scanned the shadows before guiding her toward a broken warehouse above. Inside it was empty, only shattered crates and dust. He pushed one crate aside to form a makeshift corner. He sat down heavily, leaning against the wall. His body hurt, but his eyes stayed sharp. The girl lowered herself beside him, still wrapped in the coat. She could feel the warmth of his body even through the fabric. It made her chest ache, not with fear this time, but with something new. For a long moment she was silent. Then her small voice broke the stillness. Why? She whispered again. Why do you care? You could have left me. They would have let you go. The human's gaze turned toward the cracked ceiling. His voice carried both weariness and strength. Because I know what it feels like. To be alone, to be mocked, to be told you are less. I will not let them do to you what was once done to me. Her eyes widened. She turned to face him. You, she whispered. You were treated like me. He nodded slowly, his eyes distant for a moment. Not the same way, but enough to understand. The girl's hands trembled as she gripped the coat tighter. Her throat burned as she whispered, No one ever cared before. Not once. He looked at her then, his gaze steady. Then let this be the first time, and not the last. Her heart raced. She wanted to cry, but no tears came. Instead, she leaned closer, resting her head against his arm, the coat wrapped around them both. For the first time in her life, she did not feel only fear. She felt safety. The fire inside her had been hidden for years, buried under shame and cruelty. But tonight, it had sparked. Tonight she had struck back. Tonight she had seen herself through his eyes, and though the hunters would return, though the danger was far from over, she whispered softly to herself, I am not worthless. The human closed his eyes for a moment, exhausted but unbroken. Outside, the city searched, but inside that warehouse something new was born. Trust, courage, and the hidden fire of a girl who had finally begun to see her worth. Dawn crept slowly across the broken city. The first light filtered through cracks in the warehouse roof. The human stirred awake, his back pressed against the wall. His arms ached from the fight, his fists raw, but his eyes snapped open the moment he heard movement outside. The girl was still curled in his coat, her breathing soft. For a moment he simply watched her. She looked so small, so fragile. Yet last night she had raised her hand against the hunters. There was strength hidden in her, strength she did not yet believe in, but their peace was short-lived. A faint metallic click echoed outside the warehouse. Boots scraped across the ground, voices carried low but sharp. "They are here, the blood trail led us to this place." The human's jaw clenched. He touched the girl's shoulder gently. "Wake," he whispered. Her eyes opened instantly. Wide and afraid, he pressed a finger to his lips. "Quiet." She nodded, clutching the coat close to her chest. The heavy door creaked as shadows stretched across the floor. Hunters stepped inside, their blades glinting. Their leader, the same one who had sworn vengeance last night, sneered. "You thought you could escape us, human." His voice was like poison. "But today you both die." The girl froze. Her small body trembled as fear crashed into her. Her mind screamed to run, but her legs were locked. She whispered weakly, "They found us." Her voice cracked. The human's hand squeezed hers tightly. "Then we fight again," he said. The hunters spread out, circling like predators. The leader pointed his weapon. "Take the girl alive, the human. Kill him slowly." Cruel laughter filled the warehouse. The girl's chest rose and fell quickly. She gripped the coat, whispering, "No, they will take me. They always take me." The human knelt to her level, his voice firm but calm. "Look at me. I will not let them. Do you believe me?" Her lips trembled, her eyes glistened. For a heartbeat she almost said no. But then she remembered his words from the night before. Remembered his hands shielding her. Remembered how he had not left her. She whispered, "Yes." The first hunter lunged. The human met him with a roar. His fist cracked against alien armor. The sound echoed like thunder. Another rushed in, swinging a blade. The human twisted, pulling the girl behind him. The blade scraped his shoulder. Blood spilled, but he did not falter. The girl pressed against the wall, her eyes wide. She wanted to scream, but something inside her snapped. No, she thought. Not again. She would not be taken while he bled. Her gaze darted to the ground. She spotted broken glass from a shattered crate. Her hand reached, shaking but determined. She gripped a shard tightly. Another hunter broke through and reached for her arm, his claws digging into her skin. She cried out. But instead of collapsing, she struck. The shard cut across his hand. The hunter howled in pain, his grip loosened. The girl stumbled back, her chest heaving. The human saw it. Pride flashed in his eyes even as he struck another enemy down. "Good," he called. "Do not stop. Fight," the leader snarled, furious. He stormed forward, swinging his heavy blade with both hands. The human blocked, but the force sent him crashing against the wall. The blade cut across his side. Pain ripped through him. He staggered, blood soaking his shirt. The girl screamed, "No!" She ran to him, kneeling at his side, her hands pressed against his wound, her small body shielding his. Tears filled her eyes. "Please, get up. Please." The leader laughed, raising his blade high. "Pathetic. The human dies and the worm will crawl back into chains." But the girl's fear twisted into fury. Her voice rose, sharp and shaking. "I am not a worm." The words echoed, stronger than she ever thought possible. Her small frame stood between the blade and the human, her hands clenched into fists. Her body trembled, but her eyes blazed. The leader paused for just a second, surprised by her defiance. It was all the human needed. With a roar, he pushed himself from the ground. His fist shot upward, striking the leader's jaw with brutal force. The blade clattered to the floor. The human swung again, and the leader crashed onto the crates, unmoving. The other hunters froze. Their leader's fall sucked the courage from their lungs. One by one they backed away, snarling but unwilling to continue. The silence that followed was heavy. The hunters retreated into the shadows, leaving the broken warehouse behind. The human slumped against the wall, his breath ragged. The girl dropped beside him, still clutching the coat. Her tears spilled freely. "You almost died," she whispered. "For me." He looked at her, blood dripping from his side. His smile was faint but real. "I told you, I will not leave you." Her hands shook as she pressed the coat tighter against his wound, trying to stop the bleeding. She whispered, "I thought I was weak, but when I saw them hurt you, something inside me burned. I could not stay silent." His hand rested gently on her shoulder. "That fire is yours. Do not let it die. You are stronger than you believe." Her chest tightened. She leaned her forehead against his arm. "Then I will fight too. I will not be taken again." The warehouse grew quiet, but their bond had grown louder than any blade. In the heart of danger, the girl had found her voice, and the human had proven his vow again. They were hunted, they were bleeding, and the city would not rest until they were caught. But together, they had walked through the snare and survived, and in her heart, the girl whispered words she had never dared before. "I am not worthless." The warehouse smelled of dust and iron. Silence hung heavy after the hunters fled. The human sat slumped against the wall, his side bleeding from the deep cut. His breaths came sharp and uneven. The alien girl knelt beside him, pressing the coat. Against his wound, her small hand shook, but she refused to stop. Her voice trembled. "You bleed because of me. If I had never been born, you would be safe." She lowered her eyes, shame filling her chest. But the human reached weakly, his bloodied hand resting on her shoulder. His voice was soft but steady. "Do not say that. You are not the cause of this. They are, and they will never decide your worth." Her lips parted, her eyes wide. No one had ever told her such words. For her whole life she had been called useless, a burden, a mistake. Yet here was someone who risked everything to protect her. His blood soaking into his shirt was proof of his truth. She whispered, "But I am too small, too weak." "They are right." The human shook his head slowly. "Strength is not about size, it is about what burns inside you. Last night you fought. Today you stood in front of me against a blade. That is strength." Tears welled in her eyes. She pressed harder against his wound. Her heart raced. "I was afraid," she admitted, her voice cracked. But he managed a faint smile. "Courage is when you fight even while afraid. That is the worth within you." The words sank deep into her heart. A warmth rose in her chest, not from the coat, but from his voice. For the first time she wondered if maybe, just maybe, she was not what they had always told her. Outside, the city stirred with anger. Horns blared in the distance. Shouts echoed through the streets. The announcer's voice carried from the square. "Find them, dead or alive, bring the traitor human and the worthless girl." The girl flinched at the last words, but this time they did not pierce as deeply as before. The human's words fought them back. He tried to stand but stumbled. She rushed to his side, slipping under his arm. Her tiny frame bore his weight clumsily, but she held him up. "I will help you walk," she said firmly. He looked at her, surprised. Her eyes burned with determination. "We are not stopping." Together, they moved through the broken streets, avoiding patrols. Every sound of boots made the girl's heart leap. Every shadow threatened danger. Yet with each step, she grew bolder. Her hand held the coat tightly, her other arm steadying him. She was no longer just following, she was carrying too. They reached the edge of the city as night fell again. The ruins gave way to a forest of steel pipes and forgotten machines. The girl guided him to a hollow beneath an old structure. There she gathered scraps, broken wood, and wire. With clumsy hands, she made a small fire. It flickered weakly at first, then grew. The human leaned back against the wall, watching her. His lips curved faintly. "See, you can do more than you think." She turned toward him, the firelight glowing in her wide eyes. "I never tried. Before I thought nothing I did mattered." He shook his head. "Every small act matters. Even standing, even speaking, even now you are saving me." Her throat tightened. She blinked quickly, staring into the flames. I do not want to be nothing anymore. The human's gaze softened. You never were. The fire was always inside you. They just tried to smother it. His words made her chest ache. She whispered, I want to believe you. He leaned closer, his eyes burning even through exhaustion. Then start tonight, believe not in me but in yourself. A heavy silence followed, broken only by the crackle of fire. For the first time she felt something rise in her heart. Resolve, but danger. Was never far. From the distance came the howl of horns once more. The hunters had regrouped, their voices carried. The human is wounded, he cannot run far, we will finish this. The girl froze, fear clutching her chest, but then she turned. To the human he was pale, his strength fading. He could not fight another battle alone. For the first time, she realized the truth. If they were to survive, she must stand with him, not behind him. Her tiny fists clenched, her jaw tightened. I will not let them take you, she whispered. The human raised an eyebrow, even in his weakness. And how will you stop them? She lifted her chin, fire glowing in her eyes. The same way you stop them, I will fight. The human's gaze lingered on her, proud and sad at the same time. Then you will no longer be the girl who was mocked, he said. You will be the girl who chose to stand. The sound of boots grew closer. The fire crackled brighter. As if answering the fire inside her, she took a deep breath and whispered, I am not worthless. The words felt heavy, powerful, alive. For the first time she believed them, the human pushed himself slowly to his feet, leaning heavily on her. His voice carried quiet strength. Then let them come, together we will show them. The girl tightened the coat around her shoulders, her eyes fixed on the shadows moving closer. Fear still gripped her heart, but beneath it was something stronger, her worth within. And as the hunters' voices closed in, she whispered to herself again, stronger this time, I am not worthless. The night air grew heavy as the hunters closed in. Their boots thudded against the broken ground. The alien girl pressed close to the human, her hands clutching the coat around her shoulders. Her heart pounded like a drum, but her eyes no longer looked only with fear. There was fire in them now. The human leaned on her for balance, his wounds burning. His voice was low but strong. They will not stop until one of us falls. But listen, you are not alone anymore. She nodded quickly, her small frame trembling, but refusing to back away. The shadows shifted. The hunters emerged, their eyes cruel, their blades gleaming in the faint firelight. Their leader, scarred and furious, stepped forward. You both should have stayed down. The market is no place for defiance. Tonight we end this. His sneer stretched wide. The human straightened, even as blood stained his shirt. His fists clenched. He placed himself in front of the girl once more, but she gripped his arm, pulling him back slightly. Her voice, though shaky, rose clear. No. We fight together. The hunters laughed. The worm thinks she has teeth, one spat. The girl did not flinch. Her chin lifted. I am not a worm. I am not nothing. I am alive. The words rang across the broken street, stronger than she ever thought possible. The leader roared, ordering the attack. The hunters charged. The human met them with fury. His fists cracked against armored jaws. His body moved with pain, but also with rage. Yet this time, he was not alone. The girl seized a broken chain lying in the dirt. Her hands shook, but her will was steady. When a hunter lunged at the human's blind side, she swung the chain with all her strength. It struck the alien's face, sending him stumbling. She gasped, shocked at her own strike, but did not stop. The fight raged. The human took heavy blows. But every time he staggered, the girl was there, throwing stones, striking with the chain, even biting when a claw grabbed her arm. The hunter shouted in anger, She fights! The cursed one fights! Their voices shook with disbelief. The Ike leader finally forced his way forward. His blade slashed the human's shoulder, driving him to his knees. The girl screamed and rushed forward. Her small body shielded him, her eyes blazing. You will not take him, she cried. The leader sneered, towering above her. And what Will you do, little worm? Her lips trembled, but her voice did not break. I will fight until I fall, because he taught me I am not worthless. The human's hand gripped her shoulder. His strength returning at her words, he rose beside her, bloodied but unbroken. Together they stood, small girl and scarred human. Side by side, the hunters hesitated. The fire in the girl's eyes shook them. The courage in the human's stance unnerved them. For the first time, the crowd of predators felt fear. With a final roar, the human struck. His fist crashed into the leader's jaw. The blade fell from his grip. The girl seized the chain again and wrapped it around the leader's wrist, pulling with all her might. Together they toppled him. The leader crashed to the ground, beaten. The hunters froze. Their courage shattered. One by one they retreated, dragging their leader into the darkness. Their snarls faded into the night. Silence returned. The girl dropped the chain, panting, her small hands covered in dirt and blood. She turned to the human, her eyes wide with disbelief. We did it, she whispered. He nodded, his chest heaving. Yes, we did. Her body shook, not from fear but from relief. She clutched the coat close, then threw herself against him, wrapping her arms around his chest. You stayed, she whispered, tears spilling freely. Even when I thought I was nothing, you stayed. He wrapped his arms around her gently despite his wounds. His voice was low. You are not nothing. You are someone worth fighting for, worth bleeding for. Her tears soaked into his shirt, but her heart felt lighter than ever before. Elodie whispered through sobs. Then do not leave me, please. He stroked her hair softly. I will not. Not while you still need warmth. The fire crackled low behind them. The broken city seemed distant now. The girl sat beside him, leaning against his side. For the first time in her life, she felt safe. The coat that once covered her shame now symbolized something else. It was no longer just cloth. It was the proof that someone had chosen her, shielded her, and given her hope. She closed her eyes, whispering softly, I am not worthless. And this time she believed it fully. The human smiled faintly, his arm around her small shoulders. The night had been filled with cruelty and blood, but it ended with something stronger. Trust, fire, and belonging. Dawn crept once more across the horizon. The girl sat wrapped in his coat, no longer shivering. Her heart beat with new strength. She was not alone. She had warmth. She had worth. She had found her place. And together, they walked into the new day, not as victim and savior, but as two souls bound by defiance and the warmth of belonging.